This MFL MarMac Coach Conversation brought to you by Havlicek Trucking, Meyer Auto Service, and Birdnow Chevrolet. Head coach Dan Anderson joining us. It was the district opener last week, a 42-0 win at Appleton Parkersburg. And looking at the stat sheet from that game, Coach, seemed like a very MFL MarMac football type performance. Is that a fair way to describe it?
Yeah, I was really proud of the guys. They really came ready to play. They were aggressive. They were physical, probably the most physical I've seen our guys this year and maybe for years. They were really putting some hits on those kids from Appleton and making them pay when they caught the ball. And, first half maybe wasn't perfect. Second half I was pretty pleased with, but first half we made a few mistakes here or there, had to clean up a few drop back protection issues. We completed the balls, but our quarterback got hit a couple times, and I hate to see that. So, I know some people were like, you won 42-0, you had to have played dang near perfect, but there's always things we can improve upon, and that's some things we'll work on this week.
And the running attack, 313 yards, 9.5 yards a carry, 5 touchdowns. I know old linemen like yourself, and maybe I'm using old in two different ways there, Coach. That those type of numbers makes you smile.
Yeah, they did. I was really, really happy with our offensive line, and our backs ran extremely hard, and we got the ball into a lot of guys' hands. That's kind of what we do. I don't know I think Wyatt was probably our leading rusher, and he played with a cast on this week. He didn't play against New Hampton, and he still had 9 carries for maybe 139 yards and 2 touchdowns with a cast on his hand, and so that didn't slow him down. And yards were a little harder to come by, up the middle, and Quinn ran hard, but obviously Quinn had the big week the week before against New Hampton, and they were pretty keyed on stopping him. And that's the great thing about our team is you can try to stop one guy, but we got a lot of weapons, and it just depends on who's got the hot hand. Is who we give the ball to the most. And we seem like we always have a guy that's getting 100 yards or more, and sometimes 2. It's not always the same guy each week though, so that's kind of a nice thing to have different guys that can carry the load for you.
How do you get your kids to buy into that concept that it might not be you this week, it might be you the next week, but if you put up good numbers, other coaches are going to key on you, and that means your teammate is going to have a good week next week, and we can have success as a team. How do you get kids to buy into that concept?
Well, you have to talk about it a lot to these guys about being unselfish, and if we want to get to where we want to be, it doesn't matter who's scoring touchdowns as long as we're scoring touchdowns. And you have to really burn that into their mind that, all these kids obviously want to score touchdowns and they want to be all district. And I tell them, how you get all district is if you win the district title, you're going to have a lot of all district guys. And, we've got a lot of guys that can be all district football players. But if you forget about yourself, you'll never be forgotten. That's why, our guys have that kind of that mantra. We've had that for years, that you don't worry about yourself, you worry about your team. That's the most important thing. And I think our guys have really bought into it the last 5 years because, that's kind of how it's been. We rarely have a guy that leads us in rushing 2 weeks in a row. Sometimes it's a different guy the next week. And, our offensive line, they don't get a lot of credit, and sometimes it's, it's the one back. So another week it's another back. And some weeks it's the quarterback throwing the ball. It's hard to key on, one guy because we have so many guys that can take it to the house and score touchdowns.
And this week, you don't get any weeks off in this district as Sumner Fredericksburg come to town. They're off to a very good start with a 3-1 record, a very physical, tough team. What's impressed you the most about the Cougars?
Well, they're always tough. I mean, it's always a good game between us and the Cougars. It's our homecoming, and a lot of times teams will sometimes, they'll schedule a team that's not real tough on their schedule, but there is no weak teams on our schedule, and you just had to schedule somebody in the middle of the season. So we're playing a ranked team for homecoming, and we got 3 ranked teams the next 3 weeks. So, pick your poison. They're all tough, and Sumner Fredericksburg is well coached. Got a lot of respect for Coach Coyle and Dan Leet, his defensive coordinator, and I know them well, and they do the right things with their kids. The kids play extremely hard for Coach Coyle and Coach Leet, and the rest of their staff. Just when I think of Sumner Fredericksburg, I think physical. I mean, they're extremely physical. I imagine this will be the most physical, hard-hitting game we've had so far up to this point. And they've got a pretty balanced attack. Really, they've got the Willems kid, number 9, and he's a big, fast back. And they've got Henderson, number 21, who is another really talented kid. And, the quarterback, Van Sickle, he's leading our district in passing touchdowns with 9. And so, I mean, they can throw the ball. They're a lot more balanced than they've been in the past. They can run, they can throw. I think they're averaging around 7 yards per carry when they're running the ball too. They got Jesse Jones, 23 in the backfield as their fullback, and he's a bull. He runs extremely hard between the tackles for him and is a good blocker in their middle linebacker. And so they're running more option this year than they have in the past, a midline option out of the pistol. And so obviously when you're going against an option team, you have to be disciplined, and they'll have to make sure that they aren't trying to do too much. They have to play their position. And, they can throw the ball down the field too. They've proven that. They love the wheel route. And so we've been drilling the heck out of the wheel route, because we know we're going to see that this week. And so, option, they're powerful up front. They're not extremely large. But they fire off. And Hunt kid, number 50. He's a 3-year starter. Now, he hasn't played the last 2 weeks, but I imagine he'll be back. And he's an all offense and defensive lineman, just tough-nosed kid. So they got a lot of really good football players, and they're well coached. It's going to be extremely tough this week on our homecoming.
And is it a good thing knowing the fact that really every week is going to be a tough opponent here in the district play? Because sometimes coaches, when you face a team with a record that isn't what your opponent wants, sometimes you get into the mindset of, hey, we can take a week off. Is it a good thing for your squad knowing the fact that you're going to have to bring it every week to win this district title?
Yeah, it definitely keeps you sharp, Darren. I mean, you can't, any of these teams could knock us off at any time. They're all good enough to do that. And they're all really good. I mean, the next 3 weeks, like I said, all ranked football teams. And, you got, Dyke next week, who is 2-2, but their losses to Grundy Center and to Osage by 1 point each. 1 point losses to the number 1 ranked team in the state in our class. So, I mean, we've got in Denver's undefeated and ranked 5th too, and they're there in 2 weeks from now. So it keeps you sharp, but at the same time, your body, as long as we can make through, this district without being too beat up, we'll be ready for the playoffs. Any team will. Sumner Fred, I expect, is going to be a playoff team for sure. And Denver and, these teams that we're facing coming up in Dyke, they're all playoff caliber teams. And we're all going to be battle tested as long as we don't get too beat up by each other, because the state really put a lot of really loaded teams in our district.
All right, Coach, sounds like another fun one this week. Hopefully it's a happy homecoming for you guys. Keep your kids healthy. We wish you best of luck.
All right. Thanks, Darren. Appreciate it.
Dan Anderson, head coach of the MFL MarMac Bulldogs, brought to you by Birdnow Chevrolet, Meyer Auto Service, and Havlicek Trucking.